Separating opposing charges takes work. It's hard to do. If a battery charges a capacitor, it does work on moving the charges onto the plates, and this shows up energy stored in the capacitor. How much energy? Stored where? Well, remember that to move a charge Q across a potential difference delta V increases its electric potential energy by delta U equals Q delta V. Now consider a capacitor initially uncharged that we use the battery to bring to a new total charge of Q, positive big Q, on the positive plate, and of course minus big Q on the negative plate. And let's say we charge in increments of charge d little q. All right, so the idea is that at any given time we have some charge Q and then we add dq to it. We'll assume this to be a tiny charge for what follows. At first, the capacitor is empty, so the potential difference is 0, and the first bit of charge costs no energy to store. But once we have moved it, there's a small potential difference and it takes some little amount of work to bring some more charge on. As we get towards the end, the little bit of charge has to be lifted through the entire potential difference delta Vc. On average, you could say the potential difference seen by a bit of charge is half the eventual maximum. So delta V average is 1/2 delta Vc. And then we could say that all the charge moves sort of against that. So overall, we end up with that the energy in the capacitor is Q times delta V average, which is 1/2 Q times delta V of the capacitor. This is fuzzy and hand-wavy and should be done more formally, and we're going to do that in a sec. But first, we can use the definition of capacitance, which I remind you is Q equals C delta V, to express this energy in 3 equivalent ways. U sub C, the energy in the capacitor, is 1/2 Q times the voltage difference across the capacitor, which is 1/2 times the capacitance times the voltage squared, which is also the charge squared over twice the capacitance. 1/2 C delta V squared is most useful when a battery is keeping delta Vc constant. So as we're changing something about the capacitor, somehow modifying maybe its capacitance, but we're holding the voltage the same. And then Q squared over 2C is more useful when the capacitor is isolated so that Q can't change. The voltage can change, but Q can't. And again, as we change the capacitor, we affect the energy, but we can hold the charge constant to make it very simple. All right, a little bit more formal proof. This is optional for AP Physics 2, but it's probably worth thinking about, or at least it's here in one place for you to come back and want to look at it later. As we move charge dq onto the capacitor already has potential difference delta V, we add some energy du to the capacitor, where du is just dq times delta V, because taking this charge and raising it through this potential stores this much energy in it. But the voltage that's on the capacitor right now depends on the charge that's on the capacitor right now. That is, the charge on the capacitor is C times delta V. So I might turn this around and say the delta V that you see is the current charge over the capacitance. So a little bit of energy added by adding this dq is going to be du, and it's going to be equal to the small charge dq times the current charge over C. If we want to know the total energy that's added when we add a total charge Q, we would do all the sums. So we do a little bit of calculus. On an aside, the total charge, of course, is just the sum of all the little charges. That's our definition of things. And the total energy is going to be the sum of all the little energies it takes to build all the little charges of this across the capacitor. And that's an integral from 0 to the total charge of this step, which is Q over C dq. Pull the C outside because it's constant in this process. And we have the integral of Q dq, which is clearly 1/2 Q squared. And then we say plug in 0 charge going up to total charge big Q. And we end up that the total energy stored is Q squared over 2C. And then we can do the same algebraic tricks to recover the other two forms. The practical use of a capacitor is that we can store the energy over a longish period of time and then recover it very quickly. Or, for some applications, we might want to absorb energy in a capacitor over a short period of time and then dissipate it at a rate that's more easily used in our system. The form of the energy in a capacitor is quadratic, which makes it look mathematically like a spring system, which also stores energy and is based on the quadratic of the disturbance. This turns out to be quite an analogy and allows us to model physical systems using electronic circuits, something called an analog computer, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we have the last element we'll need for it, which is something called an inductor. Where is this energy stored? Let's consider a parallel plate capacitor with area A and separation D. So we have a plate, and it's near another plate, and they have some separation between them, which is D, and some area A. You might remember that we have a capacitance, which is epsilon naught times A over D. And if there's a dielectric in it, then we multiply that capacitance by kappa, because that's the definition of a dielectric constant. So if you don't remember this, you should probably look back a few slides and see it. You might also remember that we have delta VC across the thing is equal to the electric field times the distance. Remember that the electric field is constant and depends only on the charges, and it's 0 outside the capacitor. Putting all of these things together, we end up at the energy in the capacitor is 1/2 C times delta V squared. So it's 1/2 times kappa epsilon naught over A over D times ED squared. And we can render that as 1/2 kappa epsilon naught times AD times E squared, which doesn't seem like a lot, but is about to become This form makes it logical to say the energy is actually stored in the electric field itself via that E term. The quantity AD, after all, is the volume of space where the field exists and does not exist outside of it. Also remember that in field line drawings, the density of field lines indicate the strength of the field. Where lines are close, the field is strong. So where lines are close and things look densely painted, we also have a lot of energy. We can divide out the volume to get what's called the electric field energy density U sub E. In this case, notice it's the lowercase u, and it's the capital U over the volume. So we'll cancel out the AD and get that the energy density in the capacitor is 1/2 kappa times epsilon naught times E squared. Even though we've derived this for the parallel plate capacitor, it turns out that is a generic and true thing for anywhere in space. Wherever there is an electric field, there is energy stored in that field, and the energy density in joules per meter cubed is given above. Notice that for vacuum, even in vacuum, we'd have energy stored even if there's no atoms to store it. So it must be the electric field that's holding it. In dielectrics, of course, you could imagine that it was stored inside the atoms of dielectric. But even for when kappa is 1 and we have a vacuum, we still have energy. Also, energy density can be seen as equivalent to pressure. That comes down from this. The units of energy density are joules per meter cubed, but a joule is a Newton meter over meters cubed. Cancel the meters and we get newtons per square meter, which is the units of pressure. So electric field exerts a pressure on the charges in it and causes their motion. It tends to push out. The field tends to push out against a vacuum, essentially, but create a pressure in the region where it exists. All right. Certain capacitor connected to a battery of a given EMF holds some charge U0. If the capacitor instead connected to a battery with twice the EMF, the energy is U. How do the two relate? Well, remember that UC is 1/2 CV square. So if we square the EMF, then this would be, I guess this would have been U0. Let's put, and that'd be V0. U would actually be 1/2 CV square. So U over U0 is 1/2 CV square over 1/2 CV0 square. Halves cancel, C cancel, and we get V over V0 square, which is 4:1. So U is 4 times U0. A capacitor left connected to a battery while the plates are pulled apart. What happens to the energy in the capacitor? Well, as we increase, there's some number times the original distance, then the capacitance, which is epsilon naught A over D, if D goes up, then C goes down. So there is less capacitance. But 1/2 CV squared, this is constant because we're connected to a battery. So as C goes down, U also goes down. There's less energy stored. What happens to the energy storing capacitor connected to a battery if the empty spaces are now filled with dielectric material? Well, in that case, we have that the capacitance is increasing because capacitance is kappa times C naught. So the potential energy is also increasing. What happens to the energy storing capacitor if it is isolated from the battery and the dielectric is removed? Well, now we have C decreasing, but the potential energy is Q squared over 2C, and Q is constant since it's isolated. So C decreasing means that U increases in that case.